You stay right where you are. Do not move. For this next conversation, we have Kathleen Finlay, the president of the Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, a woman I love dearly. Tutu Badaru, sorry I messed up your name, the assistant director of food access initiatives at Partnerships for GrowNYC. I love you too. Nancy Easton, the co-founder and executive director of wellness in the schools. Nancy knows I love her. And Shanon Morris, the vice president of programming for Harlem Grown. And Shanon, we go back a long way. Over to you, Stacey.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much, everyone. So we're talking today about nutrition across adolescence. And you all, in some way or another, are working with young people, with farms, with schools. So I wanted to start out just to get, I guess, a little bit of the lay of the land. I just wonder what issues you're seeing right now across youth and farms and schools, and what you think needs to be addressed most urgently. Shanon, you work just up the street at Harlem Grown. Let's start with you. What issues are you seeing that are in your mind?
Sure. So I think some of the main issues are always going to be with schools, right? That's where you're going to find the kids. And generally, those are the staff, those are the people and the systems that are having some of the biggest issues right now when it comes to staffing, when it comes to funding, and when it comes to time and priorities, right? Schools are constantly being pulled in many different ways for priorities. And so when it comes to organizations like Harlem Grown or other organizations that want to push in and provide food and farm education, sometimes you're pulling in many different directions, and they're excited, they want to get into it, but you don't always get the buy-in that you're looking for, right? Not necessarily from the school, not because they don't want to, because there's many other priorities. From the kids' side, though, there's always excitement, but when it comes to farms, you're always going to have our gardens, difficult time finding space to grow food, but we're in New York City, so we're all nimble, right? We can find a way to grow something on a windowsill, and of course, it's funding. I mean, that's all of our problems.
Always. Nancy, you also work with a lot of schools. Can you talk about what you're seeing?
Yeah, I know this is a food panel, but kids are really depressed. Kids are anxious. Kids are stressed out. I mean, we all read about it and know about it, but we see that, and we see it in the classroom in terms of behavior. But in terms of this particular topic, we heard earlier, is it 1 in 5 children coming to kindergarten in New York City already at risk of chronic illness, overweight or obese? So we are working with a very unhealthy population. And I taught many years ago, and I saw it already happening then. Children couldn't walk a flight of stairs without having to stop to catch their breath. They couldn't focus in class. They were relying on ultra-processed foods for breakfast, lunch, and probably dinner. So we're unhealthy physically, and we are, unfortunately, if you call it unhealthy, but we're stressed out mentally in terms of what we're seeing. I'm sorry to be so depressing, but we were just saying that earlier. I'm like, God, it was so hopeful this morning, but.
Well, a lot can happen in a day. Tutu, you're with GrowNYC. You work, I feel like a lot of what you do is kind of creating connections between farmers and the eaters of food.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about why that is an important connection to have?
Great. So we've been doing this since 1970 and started out as writing a lot of policies. We started as a mayoral directive and started to realize that we were writing a lot of papers that no one was actually implementing. Very quickly changed to becoming a nonprofit, and one of our biggest programs is our food access program, where we have farmers markets, we have farm stands, where people in New York City can access food. And some of the problems that we were seeing in 1970s that we still see today is that New Yorkers who live on an island have limited access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And so what we do at GrowNYC is provide opportunities for people to connect with farmers, to be able to understand the people who are growing their food, some of the challenges they're facing. We're also connecting people who live in 2 different communities, people who are in upstate New York with people who live in the city, so they can have, a broad-based idea of what our state looks like and what are the challenges that people are facing. But also for, many of us who live in the city, as Shannon's saying, we don't have a lot of space. And I remember teaching one of our curriculums in a school in the Bronx and showing kids beets. And I was like, what are these? And they're like, carrots. And they didn't know what it was because they've never seen it grown. And so a lot of the work that we do is creating opportunities for people to connect either with the food that is growing in the ground, so in school gardens, in community gardens, or with the people who are growing food. So people can expand their idea of like what food is, what it looks like, and that becomes a natural part of their life, their environment. And so that's something that we're constantly trying to create even more opportunities, which is why we have programs in almost every borough, even Staten Island. We have lots of programs in Staten Island. We won't forget them. And that's just such a pivotal part of the work that we do.
And Kathleen, I'm going to put the same question to you about the connection between farmers and where and how the food is grown and people who are eating the food, and young people especially.
Yeah, so our work at the Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, we're really focused on building a resilient and just and healthy food system here in New York and working with other regions that are also re-regionalizing their food system. And so I see the benefits of connecting eaters and farmers on a regular basis, but I think that connection is vital for folks to understand where their food comes from. Even in the food is medicine movement, I feel like the production of food is often left off the conversation table. And our work is really to support our farmers who I consider our frontline healthcare providers. Like they're doing the work that gets the food that we need every day, and they really need support right now, especially with the recent freezing and canceling of USDA funds. We had 44 farms that were being funded through various programs, mostly to address the climate crisis. Many Black farmers who had received funding from the federal government for the first time, those funds were canceled. But in a wonderful act of solidarity in our food community, funders got together and we were able to replace all the funds that were canceled and made significant contributions. Yeah, it was great. To folks who had their funding frozen. It's not a long-term solution. It's an emergency response, and I just can't stress enough that our farmers need us. The kinds of farmers that we want to support: regenerative farmers, farmers that represent cultures that have a lot to contribute to our palates, and they need us.
I'm wondering, as you alluded to, this is a time of a lot of change in our country in many, many ways. And I think, a lot of people are in the city right now talking about problems, but also talking about solutions and things that can be done. I'd love to hear from all of you about some of the things that you are doing that you're excited about or you want to start doing, or just maybe how we can start to address some of the changes that are happening that can truly feel overwhelming sometimes. Shanon, maybe we could start with you.
Sure.
No pressure. How do we solve this right now?
Well, so let me solve it. 1, 2, 3. So I think some of the things that we're excited about at Harlem Grown, it's, reminds me of the conversation that was happening a few moments ago where we were talking about having this conversation with our kids. We have an after-school program, we have a summer camp program, we're in schools all the time, we're having welcoming families in our farms, and it seems silly to not be talking about what's happening right now in our country. Clearly, there are different levels of how you would approach it for different age groups, but there's so much to learn here. We talk about history a lot. We talk about the Black Panther movement, all those things, but there's a case study literally happening right now. And I think our kids would really benefit from learning from it, forming their own opinions about it, and being a part of the change. They are going to be the panel one day, right? And so we really want to see them be as educated as possible. We're also really excited to continue to create more open spaces for our kids to be in green spaces that don't always have to be so prescriptive. Just be outside, put your feet in the dirt and in the grass, and understand what the land gives to you. We were talking about food as medicine and how it's so individualized, but it's also so much feeding for the soul. Talking about food, breaking bread with people, being in the environment, being in a garden and a farm. And so really just making sure that our spaces are accessible, open, and there's their space to just be you and do a little bit of what our grandparents did.
You mentioned that the kids were often very excited about. Will you talk a little bit about that? Because that was really nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen a kid in the dirt? They love worms. And that's what's beautiful about it, right? Like, if kids can see it grow, they see it chopped. If they can chop it themselves, they're going to eat it. They're going to talk about it. Our kids are so cute. We had an amazing summer camp where our theme was if what you water will grow, and kids learned all about, taking care of plants and being excited about hydroponics and soil farming, doing cooking classes in the garden where they were making, different salads. I think we made maybe a banana pudding cup they got a chance to make themselves. We're trying to make recipes that are going to be excited for them, but also showing them modifications and just getting their hands busy. It's hands-on learning. That's the way that folks are going to learn. That's what's going to make them most excited. You can't learn this stuff in textbooks. It is through experience.
And Nancy, I will put the same question to you. I know the optimism of the morning has worn off, but maybe we can spark some for the evening.
Eternal optimist, I will say. No.
Good.
So where I see hope, it's interesting, this morning there was talk about school food programs being cut. Today they are not. So I do see hope there. Wellness in the Schools works very closely with the Federal School Lunch Program. We work with our districts around the country to write recipes that are scratch-cooked, plant-forward, and culturally inclusive. And then we hire chefs who go into schools to help to train the school cooks, on the preparation of those meals. And we do that not because we're shoving this down food service directors' throats, but because they're coming to us because they want this for their children. We know what what is said about school lunch and what's in the news about school lunch, but I see that change. We're working on a program with New York City. They feed 1 million. We together feed 1 million children every single day. You heard this earlier, but 75% of them, their families are food insecure. They live what we call below the poverty level, as we all know those thresholds. So that meal at school is possibly their only meal. And frankly, it can be 2 and 3 meals a day. So we work very passionately and very directly with our districts to ensure that meal is a nourishing meal. And we created over 100 recipes with chefs around the country for New York City. 40 of those recipes are on the school lunch menu. Everything from jollof cauliflower to cucumber salad to a kashari stew, recipes that the children recognize from the many cultures in the city. So I'm very, very hopeful about that, and we're continuing that program. And 32 million children rely on the federal school lunch program. About 22 million of those children, again, live below the poverty level. So again, it's such an important meal. And with cuts to SNAP, and cuts to WIC, and cuts to TFAP, and cuts to farm to school programs. Right now, today, I'm hopeful about school meals, and I'm committed to working, tirelessly to continue to change those meals. So there's some hope.
Good. Well, it's always a balance these days. Tutu, I wanted to put the same question to you, and I know that GrowNYC does a really interesting program with it's like green bucks or green dollars.
Green market bucks?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you talk about that or any other programs that that you're
Sure.
putting in place. I thought it was so interesting.
I'll talk about what I'm excited about and then really wrap in the green market bucks. I've been at GrowNYC for almost 8 years, and I started in youth education because I wanted to work with children. And I think what is exciting is that we have a lot of adult programs that mimic our young people programs. Good example is our green spaces. This is where we work to build or refurbish gardens around New York City. We have a gardening education program where kids are in sustainable outdoor spaces, learning about plants, how they grow, what they look like, connecting with butterflies and worms, as Shanon is saying. And we also have various nutrition education curriculums that allow kids to have the same experience that they would at a farmer's market or at a farm stand, where they're learning about our local and regional food systems system, the farmers who are part of that system, cooking the food that is either purchased from the farm stand or the farmer's market, or food that they're growing themselves in their schools. And so essentially what we're doing is we're creating opportunities for children to experience the same things their parents are at our different programs, and providing a pathway for kids who might never have known about what we do and the work that we do to have green careers. We have lots of, one of our really great programs is our Youth Workforce Development Program. It's a 6-week program in the summer that is pretty similar to the summer youth employment, where we have anywhere between 10 to 15 young people who come, and they get the experience of working all the different programs at GrowNYC. They get to do what we do. They stock the food, they talk to customers, they make cooking demos. They'll probably do composting, they'll go to a garden, they'll build what are those called, Shanon? The plant boxes?
Planters?
The planters, thank you. They'll build planters. And essentially we are creating this idea that you can be more than the things that you've just seen, especially because we're in a city. We're giving them the experience of you can also do these jobs. And maybe some of them won't end up doing those jobs, but they'll be a farm stand shopper, they'll be a farmer's market shopper, they'll make different decisions about the food that they eat, they'll make different decisions about the food that their family is also choosing to eat. And speaking of our Green Market Back program, so one thing that is pivotal to our food access program is not just supporting the farmers who grow our food, but we also want to make sure every New Yorker can afford the food that we're selling. As everybody knows, prices of food are going up. That is a challenge not just to the eaters, but also the farmers. So because we know that that is a challenge, we didn't want to restrict farmers markets to just people who could pay with cash or credit. And so we accept various nutrition incentives like SNAP. And if you use your SNAP, there's an additional incentive if you use it at farmers market. You spend $2, you get an additional $2 up to $10 a day. So spend your SNAP at a farmers market. We also have, we accept farmers market nutrition checks, which is specifically created to support New York State farmers. And so people who are participants, families who are participants in WIC, as well as older adults can get these. It's about $25 every summer. We also have farmers who accept EWIC, and we have our Fresh Connect program, which is a SNAP incentive for New York State, and we also have our Green Market Box program, which is an internal currency, but is also a currency that we use in partnership with a health insurance company, where we allow their OTC participants to be able to use their OTC dollars in the market. And to give you an idea of what that's like, when we started that program, we were doing about 50,000 in sales. Last year, we did about 560,000 in sales. And so it's a really great program because people are getting their OTC at a doctor's, and they're talking about food that, that if they're talking about medical nutrition therapy, and then they get their OTC bucks that they could go to the market and use. They can use that for any SNAP eligible food in our market.
Excellent. And Kathleen, I want to put the same question to you.
Yeah. Just such great work, though. Really inspiring. So thank you for everyone here. I think I'm excited about the relationship between the hunger relief system and regional farms, and that I think there's some inroads that are starting to have real results. So, for example, we started something called the Food Sovereignty Fund that pays farmers, typically ahead of the season, for a set amount of food, and then we partner that farm with a hunger relief organization, so a soup kitchen or a food pantry. And then we help make sure that the food is distributed throughout the season to that access point. So there's two reasons why I'm excited about this program. One is, of course, it gets healthy, regional, dignified, culturally appropriate food to the families that need it the most. But it does so by supporting the kinds of farms that we want to support, so that the farms see it as basically a wholesale, upfront contract. And those are the kinds of contracts that really help a farm plan and persist and thrive. So that program will do about $500,000 worth of contracts. That's happening, just ending this season. And we'll do that again. And it inspired New York State to do New York Food for New York Families, which was a state incentive kind of modeled on the same thing, paying farmers to get food into the hunger relief systems. And so I see, even though that funding has been, some of it has been rescinded, but I see now the relationships are happening between the food pantries and the farms directly. Like, they don't need us as a liaison anymore. Once they see the great food and these stories of, they're sort of heartbreaking stories, but one pantry that gets their vegetable delivery from a Latinx farm, feeding mostly Latinx residents here in New York City, the folks who use the pantry start to know when the vegetables will be delivered, and even they'll just wait in line until the farmer comes so that they can get access to that great, beautiful food.
Yeah.
So I feel hopeful about some of those connections.
If I can jump in along those lines, there are districts in this country who are procuring food they're having farmers grow in December for the next school year, and that's just the ideal situation for schools.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I can't believe how fast our time went. I just saw the zero on the clock. I know, but thank you
I hope it was
all.
as fast for you guys as it was for us.
I know. I'm a little shocked, but thank you all so much for the important work that you do, and for sharing your thoughts with all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.